fellows who are coming in to see them regularly. How do you get these patients onto a stretcher, down into an ambulance, and transported to another hospital? I can guarantee you that there are situations and protocols to do all of this, because this is what hospitals are faced with in whether it's a natural emergency, a city emergency. Listen, Bellevue is set up to deal with explosions, subway fires. They're all ready to take in these patients, and they're all ready to get them not only from the emergency room up to the hospital bed into the ICU, but to get them, if they have to, out of the ICU, back down to an ambulance, then to another hospital.
Great.
So they've done this before. It's just doing it in reverse.
All right. Our senior medical correspondent, Jay Adlersberg, Dr. Jay Adlersberg. Jay, thanks for your insight. Thanks for calling in at such a late hour. We really could have, we did need your expertise in this. It was complicated bringing all these people out without any power. All right, Jay,
Certainly.
thanks.
Well, we still have another dramatic situation being played out in Far Rockaway. Jeff Begase is there, actually in Rockaway Park, Queens. Jeff, you were telling us earlier that there were rescues being made, roughly about 30 people rescued, and you also have another fire in another area.
Yeah, a lot happening on this corner of Rockaway Park, and behind me, some of the people who've been rescued from homes and businesses in this area as a result of that fire that we told you about. They're huddled in this garage, some in this white van here behind me. Some members of the NYPD have given up their coats to these people who've been rescued. A gracious move, because it's cold out here and it started to rain and the wind is picking up again. Let's go down this way. This is toward the intersection of Rockaway Beach Boulevard and 116th Street. The fire is right down the block. But before I get to that, I want to show you this fire engine. It was just trying to get out of this area, but down the block, the water is still too high, so they've had to come back. They're backing up once again because they can't go forward because of the high water. But over here, you see the fire. It's still burning. Boy, this thing is really stubborn. It's still going strong and eating up real estate here. Again, that's probably about 114 and Rockaway Beach Boulevard, where this building, it's businesses, apartments on fire and spreading. Several structures have caught fire over the last several hours now. And there are other fires in this area developing as well. To the north here, there's a fire. You could probably see the glow in the sky. That's the best picture we can get you. And then on the other side of this fire engine, another glow in the sky, because we think that is also another fire that is developing down the block. That's the best picture we can give you of this one. So several situations developing here. We thought that perhaps with the water receding, firefighters and members of the NYPD would be able to quickly reach some of these other locations, but there is still high water here in the Rockaway Park area. And now the rain has picked up once again, and the wind has picked up as well. And they are still making rescues down there. Every now and then we see people walking out with the help of either members of the NYPD or members of that special unit of the FDNY, the SOC unit, Special Operations Command. We talked to one of their members earlier about the initial rescues and how they unfolded.
It was an awning. I scaled onto the top of the awning and onto the parapet. There was 25 civilians.
They were inside, 25 people inside the building.
On the roof of the building.
And the fire was spreading.
The fire was in the two-story building next door, and the fire was coming across the top of the roof. I jumped on top of the roof. I broke one of the windows to an adjoining building, 2 buildings down. We went in, took a little bit of refuge. We waited for firefighter Morrissey from Rescue 2 to force the front door. He forced the entry into the front door, and then we were able to transport the people from the rear apartment to the front of the apartment, down the stairs, and into the boat.
All right, so that was Fireman Thomas Fee. He was joined by Lieutenant LaRocca as well, just 2 members of this SOC unit that executed some of these rescues down the block where you see that fire still burning. We talked to them about an hour or so ago, and they were still making rescues as they were just a few minutes ago. And I showed you some of the people taking cover here, some of the people who've been rescued from their homes down the block. These are people who didn't evacuate, even though this is a zone that is prone to flooding. This is one of those zones that city officials wanted people to evacuate from yesterday. Some of the people that have been rescued tonight didn't evacuate, and they found themselves in this situation that you see here behind me. Back to you.
Jeff, thank you so much. Great reporting out there. And, of course, we'll be checking back with you in a few moments.
That fire's still going on. We want to talk to Congressman from Staten Island, Michael Grimm. He's on the phone with us. Staten Island, is that him?
Looks like we just lost Congressman Mike Grimm. We'll try to get him back.
Staten Island has been hit hard tonight. A lot of flooding and a lot of power outages. We got a lot of emails from you folks in Staten Island talking about the flooding and some power outages in that borough, and we're going to try to get a hold of Michael Grimm, Congressman from that borough, who has been touring that area tonight. We'll try to get him back on the line as soon as we can.
Okay, well, let's see if Amy Freeze is available. Amy, can you tell us what the latest conditions are? I know Lee Goldberg, the last time you guys handed off.
She's not there yet. Let me
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, great. I know that the worst of it was going to be over hopefully by 2 a.m. Where are we right now at 12:26 with Sandy?
Well, right now, the one thing that we're watching very closely is the high tides that are occurring for coastal Connecticut. Also, parts of the Long Island Sound are seeing their high tide, their astronomical high tide. But the good news is that since the storm made landfall at about 8 o'clock, the surge amounts have been able to drain a bit. We'll still see minor to moderate flooding. There are some pockets that are in serious water issue status already in coastal Connecticut and Long Island Sound, but another surge of water is not going to inundate them, it looks like. So let me get you up to speed on what's happening here. The wind gusts have been coming out of the southeast. They're about 45 to 50 miles per hour. And with these types of wind gusts, we will see these wind gusts on and off tonight. Still strong, but a lot less intense. The National Hurricane Center has basically wrapped on Sandy. They put out their last advisory. Landfall occurring at 8 o'clock in Atlantic City with an 80-mile-an-hour wind. Lowest pressure ever recorded for a storm at this latitude. So historic in many meteorological ways. And the storm still having a wide impact across the east. Here are the latest storm reports at 10:40 coming into Sayreville. Police and fire performing a rooftop rescue. These type of rescues are occurring in many locations across the area. And as we get these storm reports in, we're getting our crews out confirming what's happening in these areas. FDR, this was at 9:30. FDR under Houston Street flooded out in Manhattan. The water there has receded in that area. Not sure about the structural issues with the road, but we know that the water has come down. Roof collapsed at 14th Street and 42nd in Brooklyn. That happened just before 9 p.m. We've had many structural damage reports coming in from across the area. These have not been isolated events. A lot of trees down as well. Coney Island, huge water issues coming in with their storm reports. Want to check in with the airports and what happened with LaGuardia. Water did get onto the runways with the southeast wind developing. That water has now taken off, gotten off the airfields. Newark, the wind gusts there were near 80 miles an hour. Just as the storm was making landfall. So hurricane force wind intensity across the area, making it into the New York City area, and then even into parts of New Jersey, all the way into LaGuardia. So JFK did have water as well on the airfield and covering much of the airfield, in fact. And so all the prudent actions that were taken to remove the airplanes from these locations and stop the air flights going in and out, really an important measure that was taken and probably saved a lot as far as damage to the airplanes and anything else that could have gone wrong there. With the winds tonight, here we go, between now and about 3 a.m., the reds turn into yellows and oranges. That means we're going down to winds in 35 to 45 mile an hour range around the Jersey Shore. There's still the push of water coming into the Long Island Sound, first the south-facing shore here of Long Island, and then also going into coastal Connecticut. We've still got a lot of water feeding up against the shorelines, but the water is not coming at the same intensity because the center of the storm is now moved into central Pennsylvania, so we won't see the same intensity, but yet a steady wind and gusts are still possible. Right through tomorrow morning, we will feel a very gusty breeze across the area. Into the early afternoon, we could still have gusts in the 30-mile-an-hour range across the area. The storm, very big. So just as we saw the effects and the evidence of the storm coming towards us, we'll still see some of the evidence of the storm as it leaves us. And look at just this monster impact as we see the backside of the storm trying to make its way on shore. We've got the front end of the system all the way way back in here to the Great Lakes and about to have a major impact on Lake Michigan and push winds all the way down into Chicago, perhaps creating 30-foot waves for Lake Michigan shoreline there in Chicago. Another incredible impact here for this storm has been up to 2 feet of snow developing in the West Virginia mountains. Just incredibly powerful to look at what this storm system has done across the board. For us, as far as rainfall, we do have some bands just north of New York up into the upper Hudson River Valley. These are moderate rain showers. We are not looking for flooding rains out of this. However, creeks and streams could rise quickly. And if you've already had problems with the water, if you're in flood-prone areas, some of these waterways are vulnerable, but we're not looking at any flooding type of rains overnight. Just sensitive areas, be aware of what's happening in your neighborhoods. Along the Jersey Shore, a few little bands just north of Middletown are going to try to make it in. Still some water pushing on shore as well with these winds, so sometimes it's difficult to tell. Is it coming from the rain that's coming down, or is it the water pushing on, especially when you've had water problems all day long? And here we are at dark trying to figure out what's going on. But the good news is the intensity of this storm system is winding down. Not completely over, but it's winding down. The high tides are looking good. Minimal to moderate flooding for Kings Point as your high tide is occurring right now. The water levels are looking really decent. Bridgeport, Connecticut to Stamford, Connecticut, moderate flooding. You were originally forecast for major flooding. We've been able to pull back those numbers because the storm surge has eased off. Tomorrow morning, the battery has already gone down below the splash level of 9 feet. Minimum to moderate flooding. We could see it splashing back up against that 9-foot level again tomorrow morning. Wouldn't be surprised to see that happen, but not the major water that we dealt with today. Jamaica Bay, same story, about 9 a.m., minimum to moderate impact with that high tide. So we wrap up with a planning forecast for you to let you know what's ahead. Tomorrow morning when you wake up, there will be some rain in the area. There will be some wind, but Sandy is not sticking around through the entire day, and the worst of the storm is over. By 11 o'clock tomorrow night, the rain will start to push out of here, and we just have clouds on Wednesday. So getting up tomorrow and the cleanup and assessing all the damage, some showers in the area, temperatures in the upper 50s. It'll be windy through the mid-morning hours with southeast winds gusting up above 40, even up to 50 miles an hour in parts of the area. This won't be widespread, but it's still possible. Through 2 o'clock in the afternoon on Tuesday, it's showery and windy. Winds will be out of the south 25 to 45 miles an hour. Meteorologist Bill Evans will be here starting as the news gets going in the morning, and we'll be here to follow up with the impacts of the storm. And any questions, of course, on Facebook and Twitter. You guys, we've been really fortunate to have our viewers interact with us on the social media. We also want to thank all the folks on ESPN Radio who've been listening when their power's been out on their radio. So really a great relationship with the viewers and getting information during this storm.
There have been a lot of alternatives, and you've done a great job, too, you and your whole team there. Amy Freeze, thank you for that. This has been a major situation. The New York area is going to take a few days, at least, to get back to normal. We have 3.2 million households and customers without power. This is a city that's supposed to be getting ready for a marathon Sunday. There's no power, there's no subway, no subways tomorrow, no commuter trains, schools are closed. New York City's open for business, but every other government agency throughout the tri-state has said it is closing down.
People are going to have to exercise a lot of patience right now. We want to go to John Del Giorno, who has more on road closures and closures at bridges and tunnels. And John, any word yet on when we could see some of these bridges reopen again?
Not yet. I think we just saw with the last weather report there that you've got these winds that are still forecast to be gusting over 45 miles an hour all the way through tomorrow afternoon. So you're looking at a situation you may not see the bridges fully reopened until maybe midday tomorrow, maybe even later than that. And as far as the tunnels go, the street closures, you might be concerned about some more flooding come the second round of the high tide in the morning. Let's take you through a whole rundown of the tri-state area. We'll try and keep it as big picture as we can because there's so much to talk about. First, we'll go to the live cameras. I want to show you some live pictures here of the west side. This is actually the FDR Drive. Earlier tonight, that was completely underwater. We're seeing some pavement come up through, but you can still see the FDR Drive remains flooded. We'll go over now to the west side by the Intrepid. This was the picture we brought up earlier that the roadway was completely underwater, and there you can see also some pavement coming through. The roadway remains closed. Let's go now over to our commuter alert here, and the maps will begin with the rundown of the bridges and tunnels around Manhattan. First of all, the George Washington Bridge, that's closed. The Holland Tunnel is closed. The Lower East River crossings, the Battery Tunnel, the Brooklyn Bridge, Manhattan Bridge, and Williamsburg Bridge all closed. And then on the Upper East River, pretty much all of them. The Queens Midtown Tunnel, 59th Street Bridge, RFK, Triborough, Throgs Neck, and Whitestone. Folks, Manhattan Island is truly an island tonight. The only major bridge and tunnel crossing that remains open at this hour is the Lincoln Tunnel. Let's go now up to the Tappan Zee Bridge. Remains shut down in both directions. That's due to the high winds. Now we'll go back south to Staten Island, the Verrazano Bridge. The Outer Bridge Crossing, the Goethals, and the Bayonne all shut down. Staten Island also completely an island right now. All of the bridge and tunnel crossings are shut down. Now we're going to talk about the major road closures out there. And again, these are only the real major roads that are shut down. We can't even get into the secondary and tertiary roads, but the FDR Harlem River Drive shut down for the distance from the Battery all the way up to the George Washington Bridge, and that's due to flooding. Over on the west side, 12th Avenue and the West Street combination shut down due to flooding. That is mainly south of 57th Street, but the flooding continues all the way down past Canal Street and into the Battery underpass. Major roadways in New Jersey that remain shut down. The Garden State Parkway closed both directions south of the Driscoll Bridge. That remains in effect. That is related to the state of emergency in New Jersey. No idea yet when that will be reopened. Also in New Jersey, the Newark Bay extension of the New Jersey Turnpike. That is shut down from Newark Airport over the bridge and into Jersey City. Meanwhile, we can go up to Westchester County. These are the roadways you expect with the flooding. Bronx River Parkway shut down both directions in the area of the Sprainbrook Parkway, and the Hutchinson River Parkway, that is closed both ways from pretty much the city line on up into the area of the Cross County Parkway. Finally, out to Nassau County. We were talking about this earlier. Nassau County executive has basically said that all of the roadways in Nassau County are shut down. They're technically closed. What that means is that they do not want you out on the roadway, really anywhere in the tri-state area, still under a state of emergency. Not a good idea to go out and drive around tonight. And you can see a lot of the roadways, the accessibility is very limited. We can come back to live picture. The transit trains, they all remain suspended tomorrow. No idea when they'll get service back up and running. And the airports, no idea when they'll get those reopened either, because you've got to get airplanes back into town. You could be looking at a situation probably through tomorrow, maybe back into Wednesday before you see any kind of air service return to normal. For Eyewitness News, I'm John Del Giorno.
It's certainly going to take a long time to get things back up and running with all of these road closures and the bridges and tunnels being closed.
You see the Brooklyn Bridge. Interesting, you have Brooklyn Bridge lit up and much of lower Manhattan in the dark. We have Congressman Michael Grimm from Staten Island on the phone. And Congressman, we tried to get you earlier, and thank you for calling back. We really do appreciate it.
Yeah, it's very, very busy here. There's so much going on, as you know, just like the rest of the city. Obviously, as being an island, we have some, special concerns.
Well, what are those special concerns?
Well, number one, there are some people that did not evacuate all along the coastal areas, all the way from Tottenville, Midland Beach, Oakwood Beach, and further up north. People are stranded. It's a Katrina situation all over again. Some people are on the roofs. Some people are in their attics trying to get help. 911 has been jammed. Literally, they have been sending Facebook messages to elected officials like Vinny Ignizio, councilman, and he's been calling the precincts directly and the commanding officers trying to dispatch NYPD and FDNY. They've done a pretty good job with a lot of these rescues. There's still more people that need to be rescued. I'm here at Richmond University Medical Center. They are on generator power now, and we are, literally praying that our generators hold out, or we'll be in the same situation as NYU.
We understand you're trying to get a backup generator, working the phones, trying to get that to happen, right?
We have been working since yesterday to try to get that, but now because of all of because we had this problem last year, it took me, the last time we had a hurricane, the generator came in at about 2:30 in the morning in the heart of the storm. So we were proactive. We tried yesterday to get one, but to no avail. And now, from what I'm hearing with what's going on at NYU and possibly with Bellevue, it's very, very unlikely that we're going to get one. We're going to have to get through the night. So we're praying that the generators we have hold up, because we have 27 patients that are ventilated, and we have 5 infants that are on ventilators. So it's absolutely vital that the power stays on.
Yeah, absolutely.
And what happens under that situation if those backup generators fail? What is your plan?
Well, I worked with the hospital just an hour ago or an hour and a half ago to put a contingency in place. What happens here at this hospital, there's 4 small generators. They are not linked together. they supply power to 4 different parts of the hospital. So if the generator that's providing the emergency care, like the emergency room and so on, goes down, then we have a half hour of battery backup to move those patients to a different area of the hospital to get them back on emergency power. So I worked with the hospital to put a contingency plan in place. And the hospital is doing a tremendous job. I mean, one of the problems we're having now is that there's so many people coming into the emergency room that it's a little bit of an overload. And again, we are on generator emergency power. So we're praying that holds out. If not, we will go to a contingency, but that contingency is going to be very, very difficult and life-threatening.
And only a half-hour window of opportunity there. Congressman Michael Grimm from Staten Island, working with the medical center there, trying to get a backup generator because the current generator is kind of questionable. They have widespread power outages on Staten Island. Power out, we're told, on much of the South Shore, specifically Rossville in particular, and they've been hit hard by hurricane.
Yep, and that's because Con Ed confirmed that the substation is completely underwater, and they will not be able. Con Ed has been tremendous. They've done an unbelievable job, but there's only so much they can do. They have to wait now for the water to recede before they can do anything. So you're looking at, sometime tomorrow, maybe late in the day, before all of the water is out and they can actually get in there. But you have substations completely submerged.
And Congressman, to hear you say that people are trying to reach out to you on Facebook to get rescued, this is a dangerous situation. You liken this to the scenes that we've seen come out of Hurricane Katrina, where people are standing on top of their homes. 911, you said, is jammed. What should people do right now who are in need of help?
Well, again, keep trying to call 911. If you do have internet access and it is working, I would say, continue what's working. Your elected officials, they can go to my website at.
Michael, Congressman Grimm.
Looks like we just lost
That was Michael
Grimm.
Well, he was a yeoman's job staying on the phone with us. We appreciate it. That was Congressman Michael Grimm from Staten Island, working with the medical center there to try to get a backup generator. And Congressman, we appreciate you taking time, and we hope they get a backup generator and get some power back in Staten Island.
We certainly do. We now want to go to Jen Maxfield. She was originally in Fort Lee. You have now moved to another location in Hackensack. What is the latest situation there, Jen?
That's right, Shade. We're in the middle of a very strong rain ban, so forgive me if we have to turn away from the camera for a moment. We're here on Hudson Street in Hackensack, and the reason that we did leave Fort Lee to come here is because of the flooding on the roadway here. It's pretty dark. There is no power in this area, so bear with us. But take a look down the street there. You can see that this entire neighborhood is completely flooded. And in fact, the Hackensack Fire Department was here for hours rescuing people from their homes. We're going to show you some video of those boat rescues. Now, this was dramatic. This was not a mandatory evacuation zone, but in fact, the water from the Hackensack River here came up so quickly, really within a matter of minutes, that people were just taken by surprise. Take a listen at what emergency officials here had to say about that.
I would say the water came up within a matter of a half an hour, and it came in real fast, and most people were really caught unaware.
And again, we are live here on Hudson Street. This is where some of the rescues were taking place. The emergency crews, though, just within the last hour moved over to Vreeland. That is where they are now. And we understand that there are more water rescues going on over near Court Street in Hackensack. So again, a very dramatic situation here in the city of Hackensack, with the water from the Hackensack River rising so dramatically over River Street, and now dozens of residents needing to be taken out of their homes by boat. They are being taken to the Civic Center here in Hackensack for shelter. Back to you in the studio.
Okay, and again, these are dramatic scenes that are being played out. Jen, any idea from your location how many people were rescued in that area?
Fire officials that we spoke with when we first got here to the scene said there were at least 30 people and maybe as many as 50 people, and that was just from the location here at Hudson Street. As I pointed out, there are more rescues going on at this time over on Vreeland. There are more rescues happening at Court Street. So again, just a very active situation here in Hackensack, and emergency responders both from the city and neighboring towns such as Carlsbad coming here to help out and to get these people out of their homes. In fact, we spoke with one man whose entire first floor was flooded. He went back in after having driven out, just went back in to lock up, get a few essential things, knowing he'd probably come back to a house that was completely destroyed.
No question. Jen, let me ask you a personal question. How many towns have you been in today? Because I can think of half a dozen almost, or so it seems. And you and your photographer, I want to give a shout out to her or him.
Yes, yes. John Spry and I, we did get started around 9 a.m. today. I think at last count we had been to 8 different locations, although 3 of which have been right here in Hackensack. So a lot going on in Hackensack today. We were here, we left, and now we're back.
The first time I saw you this morning was at Target in Hackensack. Is that right?
That's right, and that Target closed at noon. So after they were closed, we moved on to the more serious matters of the flooding and the bridge closures, and now the water rescues here in Hackensack, which are still continuing at this time. And in fact, we're going to go move over to the more active scene over on Vreeland as soon as I'm done talking to you now.
Well, you're going to talk to us for a few more minutes, if that's all right. We're waiting for an update on a latest update. We thought we were going to have, earlier Andrew Cuomo would have a press conference, and that didn't happen. But we do want to talk to you for a couple more minutes, and I want to thank you and your photographer and all of our crews who have been out in this
working tirelessly
all the time to get the latest information to people, because really what we wanted to do, and it's still our goal as we continue our coverage all through the night and tomorrow, is to let you, the viewer, have the right information that you need to make decisions to keep your family safe and alive.
And Jen, before you go,
Bill,
I see you seeing something else.
I want to point one thing. Yes, I just want to point one thing out here. Perhaps we're going to get started again here at this location, because here comes the rescue boat. They were here before. They left to go over to Vreeland, and here they are. They're back. And this location, I should point out, too, Route 80 is actually blocked here at exit 65, that Hudson Street exit. So anyone who wanted to drive into this area would be stopped from doing so. And, of course, these roads are completely impassable because they're just flooded with water. But, again, we are seeing a rescue boat coming back on the trailer here, which makes me think perhaps they're getting ready to get started again. They had 2 different methods of rescuing people. The one way was to wait for people to call them and ask for help. But then they decided that the more prudent course of action would be to just go door to door and to make sure that everybody in this flood zone was out. And in fact, that's what the Hackensack Fire Department did tonight. Very busy night for them.
Yeah, busy night indeed. And Jen, you may not have had a chance to talk with that person who was rescued, who was saying that their home was flooded in water. By any chance, did they say that they had insurance?
They did not say whether or not they had insurance. Interestingly, they did go back to lock their doors, and the one thing that they wanted to bring out was a generator. They were heading over to Lodi, and perhaps there was a power outage there as well. We understand about half of the town of Lodi is out of power now. You can see this entire section of Hackensack. The reason it is so dark behind me here is because they're out of power. And again, I would just direct your attention over here to this rescue boat heading back into the water here on Hudson Street in Hackensack, and it looks like they're going to get started at this location again.
Taking a little Boston Whaler type boat out, very small, looks like a 13-footer, and these guys are a little kind of unsinkable with the little 1-engine outboard motor there.
Yes, and actually when we first got here, literally when we first pulled up, we did see several families. We're talking about mothers and young children. One child not even old enough to walk by himself had to be carried from the fire rescue truck to an ambulance. People were getting checked out and then being taken over to that city shelter over at the Civic Center, where people can ride out the rest of the storm before they can get back into their houses. But again, even once it's safe to go back to their houses, who knows what's even going to be left back there. The one man we spoke with who had just come out of his house said his entire first floor was completely flooded, and he said it was just devastating. He didn't think it would happen like this.
And what we're seeing behind you, you can see it in the puddles there, is rain again. Amy said there'd be bands of showers, and that it looks like it's raining pretty hard there, Jen.
Yes, and interestingly, when we were up in Fort Lee, it really was not raining very hard. We were still getting those strong wind gusts. We have not felt as much of the wind, but now we are getting back into the rain pattern. So it just seems like at this point, people here in Bergen County, us included, and all the emergency responders and the utility crews out at this hour just cannot catch a break just yet.
That's just too bad for them, but there's not stopping them. You see them unloading that boat and going out. And you notice they have helmets. They have flotation devices around them? Little flotation
Yes, they're
devices?
actually wearing, they're wearing almost like a neoprene suit. It's almost the same material as a wetsuit. So that way the water obviously is very cold and the air is very chilly. So they wear these suits to keep themselves warm, and then they bring special supplies with them, of course, in case the people who they're rescuing need medical attention as well.
Okay.
Jen, but again, this area was not...
Go ahead. We missed that last part, Jen. You blacked out there a little bit. What did you say?
I was just going to point out that this is not a situation where these people were ordered to evacuate and they insisted upon staying in their homes. This was an area that may flood from time to time, but it was certainly not a mandatory evacuation, and this really took everybody by surprise. Again, you heard the fire captain from Hackensack saying that this water came up in a matter of 30 minutes, taking everybody by surprise.
Okay. And, you know, Jen was talking about this is not an area that was supposed to be evacuated. We heard the same thing from Jeff Begays in Far Rockaway Park saying, you know, we weren't supposed to go anywhere.
In the park. In the Rockaways, yes, but not in the park. One of the things we want to keep, and we're going to watch very closely tomorrow, is this. This is a picture from one of our cameras of the 1,000-foot high residential, very, very expensive Tony a condo project that is under construction at 57th and 7th Avenue, and there's the problem. A crane not secured anywhere above on the top 4 or 5 floors there, just toppling on the other side, on the wrong side of that cab, and it has been dangling precariously. We really thought there was a good chance that it might go down.
But fortunately, look at how many hours later that it is still here. So that is
fingers crossed.
Yeah, we're keeping our fingers crossed that this maintains this situation.
The officials we talked to earlier tonight said the way they gotta have to get in there is bring another crane to support it and then have the workers go up on the building. Don't forget, many of these workers may not live in Manhattan, and they're gonna have to come in through subways, which don't run, or through tunnels and bridges that are closed tomorrow. So we don't know how long this crane's going to stay
and the worst
like
of it still isn't over yet. You know, as we heard from Amy Freeze and Lee Goldberg, that the worst of this is still going into 2 a.m. in the morning. We still have high winds at this point. And again, earlier, those winds were at 50 to 60 miles per hour. But we heard from Lee Goldberg at the top of where that crane is, wind speed is at 100 miles per hour. It's certainly going to fluctuate throughout the night. So we are not out of the danger zone just yet. We're going to keep a close eye on this.
No winds like that right now, though, right, Amy Freeze?
Well, no, not right now, but Shada, you're exactly right. The way the science works is at the surface, if we have a wind speed of 65 miles an hour, which was recorded at Central Park just a few blocks away, the same hour that this happened, you can go up 30 stories off the ground and you would see a wind increase to 90 miles an hour. But if you go up, how many stories did you guys say this building was? 90 stories? 60,
no, it's about 75 stories.
60 stories?
Yeah.
So it would be right around 100, 120 mile an hour wind. That's called a wind increase with height. And so this is the kind of impact that winds can have on high rises. Of course, if you have scaffolding hanging off the edge, it could blow that off. But also it has had an effect on windows across the area. People have had their windows destroyed during these extremely powerful winds across the entire length of the storm. So from start to finish, there have been issues. Now, think about this. You've had the wind, the duration of the storm, and things could be loose in places. So you still need to be careful as you go to assess the damage to see what's happened. There will still be wind gusts 45 to 55 miles an hour even into early tomorrow. Not as widespread, but still occurring in some spots. Within the last hour, we've had wind gusts within the low 40s. The winds are coming out of the southeast right now. The storm surge has been able to pull back, and the National Hurricane Center has issued their final advisory for this storm. Let's first check the storm reports. This one coming in for Sayreville about 10:40, one of the many rescues that was going on in and around the area. These are real-time reports, and what we can do is once we get this information, this was when the FDR became underwater, flooded over and flooded out, we're able to send the crews there, gather information, and get it out to everyone. There is still some water there in parts of the FDR. Other parts the water has receded, so improving conditions there. We know that. In Brooklyn, a roof collapse, one of the many structural damage reports that we've had come in across the area. Coastal flooding for Coney Island was really, really incredible, and they say that that the water was just over all the streets and a lot of damage there to their beach, of course, and all the way inland across the Coney Island area. All right, let's go to the airports. We've got LaGuardia. They did have water covering the runway intersection there. The water has been able to recede off the runway. In Newark, as the storm made landfall, a 78-mile-an-hour wind gust. That's a hurricane force wind. And then also we had at JFK a 75-mile-an-hour wind. I just grabbed the latest storm reports. Let me share those with you. The top wind speeds, as we were forecasting for this storm, we thought it was possible that we would see a 90 to 100-mile-an-hour wind. That happened at Eaton's Neck. We had a 94-mile-an-hour wind. Islip Airport had a 90-mile-an-hour wind reported just as the storm was making landfall. Now, the center of the storm has made its way to central Pennsylvania. We still have strong winds on this quadrant, on this side of the storm. So if you think back to when we were starting the storm and we started to see the early evidence, now we're on the back side of the storm and we're seeing the last part of the storm. So through 4 a.m., we still have winds at the shoreline that are in the 35 to 45-mile-an-hour range, maybe even pushing into this orange zone near 50-mile-an-hour wind gusts still possible on the back side. The center of the storm is going to continue to push into eastern Pennsylvania, and it's not done. The intensity of the storm will remain as it goes inland, and that's the one major factor here that a lot of people are surprised by. They think when a hurricane moves inland, it just completely falls apart. Well, that might be the case in some situations, but with this particular storm, it has remained intact, and it is very intense because it caught up with another storm that allowed it to keep its intensity in the low pressure state intact. Still some rain bands coming in, and we saw there in Bergen County that they had some moderate rain, and there it is, the evidence on the radar, oranges and yellows showing up. That orange right there could be a rainfall rate of about a ½ inch per hour. In some cases, maybe up to an inch per hour just inside that band. It'll be quick moving showers though, and we'll see some improvements from that. On the Jersey Shore, still some light to moderate rain falling, and this will be the case all the way through tomorrow, off and on showers coming through the area. There's the possibility of creeks and streams rising, and some of the some of the rivers are also going to be coming up as well. We've been watching the high tides all in good shape as we go through midnight, and so as we go through the overnight hours, we'll be able to see the improvement in the conditions. I think the great news here with high tide for the Battery, you guys, is once we go to tomorrow morning, it's only a minimum to moderate. I think we're barely at the splash wall tomorrow morning for the Battery.
All right, Amy Freeze, great job summing up the whole kit and caboodle and what we saw tonight. Great job.
Well, this has been quite a dramatic night so far. We've seen so many rescues happen across the tri-state. We are going to take a break coming up, but before we do that, we just want to let everybody know that Sandra Bookman and Lauren Glassberg will be taking over the coverage for now. For now, throughout the night. We're going to bring it to you tomorrow as well. We are going to we walked through the storm with you, and it was a privilege to help you do that, and it was a privilege to have you watch us as well. We're going to do the same thing tomorrow as New York and the tri-state. Millions of people try to clean up from the devastation of Hurricane Sandy. We have power to clean up, we have subways to get back running and trains, and we've got our lives to get back together. We're going to be here every step of the way with you starting tomorrow morning on Eyewitness News and starting in about 2 minutes with Lauren Glassberg and Sandra Bookman. And we're going to go to a break right now.
Stay with Channel 7 Eyewitness News for continuing coverage of Sandy. On air, on your computer at 7 Online, and on the WABC iPhone and iPad apps. Plus, send your pictures of the storm to @WeatherABC7.
Yes. When you use all-natural sugar in the raw and all-natural zero-calorie stevia in the raw, you'll have every reason to celebrate. Raw natural sweetness, raw natural success.
Yes! I thought she was armed with all the knowledge that she would need to stay off drugs.
I would steal pills from my friend's mom.
We talk about all the common drugs, but never about prescription medication.
I was addicted to pills, and I was living in a car. I stole a bunch of jewelry. I needed money for drugs.
Had I more knowledge about prescription drug abuse, I would have done things differently, yes.
Help save kids from prescription drug abuse. Secure your medications and talk with your kids. Visit drugfree.org.
For every famous curve, there's an equally thrilling, lesser-known counterpart waiting to be discovered. Conquer them with the Lexus IS Performance line, featuring the IS 250. Real performance demands real precision. Lease the all-wheel drive 2012 IS 250 for $329 a month for 24 months, with $29.29 due at signing. See your Lexus dealer.
I'm so glad you stayed.
When you bake with all-natural sugar in the raw and all-natural zero-calorie stevia in the raw, you'll have every reason to celebrate.
I'm going to eat you up now.
Raw natural sweetness, raw natural success.
New York's #1 news, Channel 7 Eyewitness News this morning. Now, a special Storm Watch edition of Channel 7 Eyewitness News. Tracking Sandy.
Deadly, devastating, and it's not over yet. The lights go out and the water rushes in as Sandy roars into the tri-state area. The superstorm is blamed for at least 10 deaths and extensive flooding. The water is flowing through pitch-black New York streets as power outages plunge the city into darkness. More than 500,000 customers in the city alone are powerless. Millions more are without electricity across the region. This massive toppled tree responsible for the first reported death in New York City. A man in Flushing, Queens, killed when it fell on him. As if the wind, rain, and flooding weren't bad enough, firefighters in the Rockaways are dealing with the ferocious blaze as well. And there are still big concerns about a crane hanging precariously from a skyscraper near Central Park. Still to be seen the extent of the flooding and damage to the area's mass transit system, the lifeblood of New York. Good morning, everyone. I'm Sandra Bookman.
And I'm Lauren Glassberg. This is a special Eyewitness News edition, our coverage of Sandy as it continues to slam the tri-state area. Large sections of Manhattan are without power right now because of Sandy, and evacuations are underway at New York University Hospital. Patients are being moved because the hospital's backup power system failed. We are staying with you throughout the storm, and we are scrolling all the important information at the bottom of your screen.
Now, here are some of the key points right now that you need to know. In New York City, there is a mandatory evacuation of so-called Zone A. Those are the low-lying areas along the edges of the city, including much of Lower Manhattan, sections of Brooklyn, the Bronx, Staten Island, and the Rockaways in Queens. All public schools are closed again today. Mass transit, including all subways and buses, shut down. There's no word yet on when that service will resume. And all Broadway shows canceled again today.
And now take a look at this. Sandy flooding the Brooklyn Battery Tunnel with water, a sight not seen before. Right now, these bridges are closed. We have the Brooklyn Bridge, the Holland Tunnel is closed, Tappan Zee Bridge is closed, the Throgs Neck is closed, the Whitestone, the GW Bridge, the Marine Parkway, Cross Bay, East River, and the Triborough, the RFK Bridge.
And we have an entire Eyewitness News team spread out across the tri-state area covering this storm. They've been there all day through the evening into the night. We're going to start with Lucy Yang. She is live in Hoboken, New Jersey. Lucy?
Well, that's right, Sandra. We are in Hoboken, where city officials say this is the worst flooding they've experienced in almost 200 years. I'm not that old yet, but I can tell you that in all the years I've been reporting on bad weather, this is the worst. Right behind me is a gas station completely roped off tonight. In fact, most of the gas stations in this area tell me they ran out of gas much earlier in the day, and if folks didn't gas up before the storm came, it was already too late. Let me take you over now to Willow Avenue. Over here, you can see the street is still flooded. There's the bench for the bus stop. When we pulled up, the water was almost up to the seat of that bench. It has been receding now. High tide has moved out, and you can pretty much see the bench again, but the roads, lots of flooding on these roads, which is why the city ordered a complete curfew at 6 o'clock this evening. They wanted all the cars off the street so that only emergency vehicles could get through these roads. They did not want cars to stall out and block streets and prevent ambulances or fire trucks from arriving at the scene. To give you a sense of just how much damage all this water caused today, we were traveling over the 14th Street Viaduct when we happened to look over and see just the tremendous impact flooding causes on property. We're going to try to show you this video. what you're going to see are the rooftops of what looks like brand new taxis, completely submerged up to the roofline levels. You're also going to see buses submerged. This is a huge parking lot where you can see New Jersey Transit keeps its buses, and where it looks like brand new cars are kept. All that destroyed tonight. Also this evening, we saw some very dramatic rescues from people, people being rescued from their flooded out homes, rescue workers going door to door, making sure they got everyone out of those flooded homes. So that's the scene tonight. Very, very difficult scenes, very tense situations with all this flooding, with power out, with so much damage, with people trapped in their homes. I want to give a big bravo to all the rescue workers who have been out here tireless working throughout the evening. You hear some sirens going by us right now. I also want to give a big thank you to my crew, Greg and Dave, who have worked with good cheer and good stamina and really have worked so hard through the night. And of course, to all our viewers who make all this work worthwhile. We're live in Hoboken tonight. I'm Lucy Yang for Channel 7 Eyewitness News.
Oh, Lucy, we're not going to let you go just yet, but we do thank you and your crew for all your hard work. Tell us a little bit about the water receding, because we know that is certainly a good sign, but how significant is it? And really, I mean, the damage is already done once the water is rolled in. So what is the outlook in your estimation?
Well, Lauren, the damage is done, and that's the problem. But at least with the water pulling back, once light comes back to the city, rescue workers can and cleanup crews can start their job. I don't know if you can see back here. It might be a little bit dark, but everywhere we go, we can see just how high that water went. Like, we can see how high the water went up to these tanks by all the debris left behind now that the water is pulling out. Of course, high tide does come as well in these cycles, and this might not be the end of it, but hopefully it will be the worst of it. So again, to what you're saying, with the water pulling back now, they can at least start cleaning up all the debris, all the garbage that's scattered all over the place. Some of these roads are completely impassable. Fallen trees, fallen branches, garbage. Barricades that were set up were completely washed all over the place. So it gives them a chance, once the water passes, to start cleaning up, and that begins, of course, the recovery process.
Lucy, I'm going to put you on the spot just for one more second. You and I have been covering this a long time. Lauren, too. We've seen a lot. What makes this,
but not 200 years worth, right?
No, it's true. What makes this for you one of the worst you've ever seen through all those years of all the things that we've seen and covered?
Well, Sandra, I've never seen such an early call on curfews, number one. All pedestrians off the street by 4 o'clock. All vehicles, there goes another ambulance, all vehicles off the street by 6 o'clock. They were anticipating the very worst, and there was so much anxiety about what was to come. And I think what gives us the sense of how dire this was is the blackout, is how dark these cities are. And when we drive up and down these blocks to see streets completely in the dark, it's a very eerie feeling to see apartments completely blacked out. Maybe on occasion you'll see a candle inside a window, but basically you have a whole city in the dark. That's a very disturbing sight when you're used to this region really just never going to sleep.
Yeah, you can hardly see the stars around here because it is so bright, so much light pollution, Lucy, and it's dark. A large swath of Manhattan is dark as well. Thank you so much, Lucy Yang in Hoboken, New Jersey.
Thanks, Lucy. And let's turn now to Amy Freeze. Lucy talked about, Amy, the water receding. So can we be hopeful now?
There are, lots of signs to the storm's intensity lowering, but we can't necessarily let down our guard completely. There are still wind gusts up there at 45 to 50 miles an hour. Cameras shaking just outside our studios here. We do have some light rain bands still that we'll see overnight tonight. The storm is becoming less intense, but if you think about the beginning of the storm and the first signs that the storm was coming, that's sort of going to be the case as it leaves. We'll see the storm slowly diminishing across the area. It has maintained its intensity as it's moved inland. It's just the center of the storm is moving further and further away. The latest wind gusts for Teterboro, 40 miles an hour. LaGuardia, 43 mile an hour wind. Newark, a 52 mile an hour wind gust. JFK down to 38 miles an hour. So we'll see these gusty winds come and go, and I think we may even see a a lull at daybreak in the gusty winds, and then they could pick back up midday before things really settle down late tomorrow. So there's still some wind to get through. It won't be as intense as the heart of the storm, but still at times seeing a wind gust of 40 or 50 miles an hour can certainly capture your attention. And with all the wind we've had around here, things could be loose. Things could be a little bit more vulnerable than they normally would be. Overnight tonight, look how the oranges and the reds, those top wind speeds of 45 to 50 mile an hour winds, will slowly move out of here. And by pre-dawn, we'll be looking at the yellows and light oranges, so still gusting up to 45 and 50 mile an hour winds. Those will be coming out of the southeast, a little southeasterly turn, and then eventually becoming a southerly wind for us during the day tomorrow. But still by 7 a.m., yellow still on the futurecast, indicating that strong winds are still possible in parts of the area. By tomorrow afternoon, the wind relief will be here. These are the top peak wind gusts that we saw across the area. When we were forecasting for this storm, it's always a little unnerving to put down a possibility of an 80 to 100 mile an hour wind gust, but that's exactly what we saw happen. The top wind speeds were in Suffolk County, Eaton's Neck, and Islip. East Mauritius also had an 81 mile an hour wind gust. Plum had an 80 mile an hour wind gust. Atlantic City, where the storm made landfall, hurricane force wind at 80 miles an hour. And then Bridgeport, Connecticut up on the board too with a 76 mile an hour wind. We had a large aerial coverage of those very intense hurricane force winds across the board, even into some of the airports. Let me show you the storm reports. Sayreville, as late as 10:40, was doing a rescue off a rooftop. These type of rescues occurred all across the area. People who either didn't take the evacuation order or they weren't ordered to evacuate, and the storm was more intense in their area than they were expecting. FDR did flood over, and we've seen those waters start to pull back a bit. The daybreak will show what has happened there on the FDR. Non-thunderstorm wind damage basically means that the top wind gust in this area caused some damage, and a roof collapsed in Brooklyn. That report coming in at 14th and 42nd Street. Structural damage like that to people's homes, apartment buildings, widespread across the area. So a very, very expensive storm as far as damage just that you see on your own property. Coney Island inundated with water, just one of the many examples of a storm surge where it overtakes the island in a short amount of time, really surprising a lot of people. LaGuardia, we did have water covering the parts of the airfield there. That water has come back or receded. Newark Airport at the time of the storm making landfall, a 78 mile an hour wind gust. They also had some water issues there, but at JFK, parts of the runways covered in water, and so all of those steps that they took to cancel the flights and get those planes off the airfield, very prudent of them and worthwhile. Flood warnings do remain in effect. Some wind advisories are still posted for parts of the area, and wind warnings as the storm pulls away from us. Look at the radar and satellite picture, still the size of the storm, and a reminder that once a large storm comes on land like this, it usually turns into the leftovers of a hurricane. And this did not happen with Sandy, and the reason for that is as Sandy made landfall as a hurricane force type storm, it did merge with another storm coming in from the west that had intense cold air in it. And that warm tropical air and the cold air from the north, that combined and re-intensified the storm, really allowed it to keep its strength. So as it's moved inland, the wrapping part of the storm system is actually pulling in incredibly cold air back here in the back quadrant of the storm. And you can see in the Virginia's highest elevations, they've had storm reports over a foot of snow coming in from Sandy. From this storm. Look at the bands that are setting up here in the Hudson River Valley, extending all the way up into Ramapo, really from the city northward through Bergen County, all the way up into Orange. We're seeing some moderate rain showers, and these rainfall rates could be anywhere between a ½ inch to an inch per hour. These little orange pockets, these are the heavy rain bands. Just a few yellow bands coming in through parts of South Jersey. Toms River, seeing a few little bands here showing up within the last 30 to 40 minutes. Just north of Brick, we're seeing some light to moderate rain showers, and then you see that band just north. It's moving, right across the river into Jersey. Some heavier rain showers there, so we can get it a little closer on that, and you can see Hackensack, it's just moved past you. Patterson up into Ridgewood and Oakland, you're seeing those moderate rain showers right now. So still creeks and rivers, creeks and streams still very vulnerable. Rivers are rising at this time. We'll be able to look at the flood gauges here overnight tonight, and maybe by 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, we'll be able to tell you where the rivers are. The hydrology reports are out, and that'll give us a good indication of what's happening with the runoff, because creeks and rivers are very quick to rise. It happens immediately with the flooding on that. But a river is a much larger body of water, and it takes time to see what's happening with that and see what type of development we have. Even by 3 o'clock tomorrow, we still do have rain showers, light in the area. By 3 o'clock, just breezy conditions. And even into Wednesday, we'll have clouds and light winds in the area. And this is just all as this storm system pulls away from us. So here's what you need to know to sort of plan over the next little while, taking us into tomorrow. By Tuesday morning, just a few hours from now, 6 a.m., showery and windy still, gust up to 50, even 60 miles an hour in isolated pockets. The rain and wind will be diminishing through the day. So by the end of the day, temperatures will be in the low 60s. Here's your AccuWeather 7-day forecast. That would give you a little light at the end of the tunnel. Still a shower possible on Thursday and Friday, but Saturday partly sunny, looking decent. And for Marathon Sunday, it looks like things are going to be pretty good. 56, a decent forecast there. So temperatures looking good for that. I want to toss it back to you guys. If anybody has any questions, of course, we have access on social media, Facebook and Twitter.
Wow, this is one storm that you can just keep talking about because it's so unique and so different than anything we've seen.
And it's in the record books.
It is in the record
already,
books.
and we haven't even had a chance to see everything by the light of day yet.
When we start seeing things by the light of day, wow, that is going to be jarring. And maybe to talk a little bit about what's planned for the days and the hours coming up, Sergeant Adam Grossman, he joins us from the New Jersey State Police. Sergeant, good morning to you. Tell us what you are busy with right now and the situation.
Well, as the morning unfolds, the State Office of Emergency Management is in constant contact with the County Office of Emergency Management and local Office of Emergency Management offices to make sure whatever assets are needed as the day breaks, we get those assets out around the state, whether it's providing relief, rescue relief, or notifying utilities about down wires, whatever's needed. We're operating at full strength right now.
Are you able to give us an overview of what the situation is now, say on New Jersey roads, that kind of thing? Obviously, you've got a lot of flooded out areas. Can you give us a look at things right now?
Yeah, well, we still have a lot of, we have flooding going on. You still have the parkway closed. You have a lot of down trees and down wires. So we're just echoing Governor Christie's advice to stay home and be able to get a better assessment of the state as the day breaks.
And the areas hardest hit, obviously, we know the shore. Is it as you expected, or have you been surprised at how far or where some of the flood water has risen and where there are more down trees and power lines in places that perhaps you didn't anticipate?
Partially. I think this storm, the sheer size of it is kind of throwing different obstacles our way. But we're on top of it, and whatever comes in, we'll assess it and make sure the appropriate assets are sent out.
So are you willing to share with us what some of the areas you're probably going to be heading to first, taking a hard look at tomorrow to try to get resources there and doing some of the cleanup or pushing resources or assets that way?
Not a specific area, just wherever it's needed. Okay. It could be, obviously we know the shore area has been hit hard, but we're going to look at every area of the state.
Sergeant Grossman joining us from the New Jersey State Police. Thank you for your time and good luck with all of your endeavors tomorrow, you and your crew out in New Jersey.
Thank you.
And we're going to come back here to New York. Eyewitness News reporter Kimberly Richardson is at New York University Hospital in Kips Bay. Quite a dramatic situation there earlier this evening, Kimberly. How are things standing now?
Sandra, it's still actually pretty dramatic. Just a few minutes ago, I actually watched a mother coming out on a stretcher. She was alert and awake, and in her arms was clearly her newborn baby. That was a complete 180 from what we saw when we first pulled up here. A nurse on a stretcher cradling what seemed to be an infant from maybe a NICU. There were monitors. There were all kinds of machines attached to that baby. We understand that about 200 patients here at New York University Hospital here. It's about 16 to 20 feet tall, about 200 patients now in the process of being evacuating. Let me show you what's happening. There's a caravan, a parade of ambulances, volunteer from all over the area here on First Avenue. There are probably 2-3 dozen lined up on First Avenue. They wrap around 30th Street. They are waiting. They pull down First Avenue. They come here into the semicircular driveway here. And then inside, the paramedics, the nurses, the doctors, they're getting them out on stretchers and they load them up here. I want to show you some video we took not too long again, more patients coming out of here. We're seeing all ages, we're seeing men, we're seeing women, we're seeing a range of conditions. Some folks that are alert and seem to be okay, but then there have been some serious situations. We've seen oxygen tanks, we've seen IV, obviously IV bags, we've seen different kinds of monitors attached to these patients. If you want to come back here live, actually, here is a patient that's coming out here on this stretcher. Does not appear to be in great shape. Not in good shape right now. It's interesting. This is the first patient we've seen. Yes, this appears to be possibly an elderly person. Tubes coming out of their nose. This is the first person we've seen actually taken out and loaded out here in the rain. We're on First Avenue, and the rain and the wind is still picking up. It's pretty strong out here. We also saw, I don't know if it was a change of shift, but at least a dozen nurses in their scrubs coming out of the hospital. We still have not been able to, as you can imagine, they have their hands full. I've probably seen 3 dozen patients come out now, but with 200 patients, they're busy inside. We haven't heard anybody yet from the hospital, heard anybody from them officially on the record about what's going on inside. We're still trying to figure out how they are getting these patients down the stairs, or we're assuming maybe some of the lights that we're seeing inside from here on the street looking into the hospital are on backup power, maybe not backup power, I'm sorry, battery power. All questions we'd love to know, but they're kind of had their hands full now.
Viewers that might be joining us just now, of course, this has been going on for a while now, and it's all because the backup generators fail there at the hospital?
That's what we're understanding, Sandra. Yes, the backup generators, which, you know, you have a loved one in a hospital, and it's probably one of the most, besides the loved one being in the hospital, unsettling things for you to go through. You know, you think they're safe here, you think they're in good hands, which they are, but then the backup generators go down. You know, and that's what we're understanding, and that is what's causing all the commotion out here. I did overhear one paramedic saying that they were taking the patient to Mount Sinai. I'm sure other hospitals across New York City have opened their doors and are taking in, again, the roughly 200 patients that have to be moved out of this hospital.
Yeah, there probably is a reciprocal relationship with many of the area hospitals. And the patients you're seeing, I would imagine, Kimberly, like the person who was just rolled out, are the more emergent situations where they can viably move these patients out without causing further damage. I mean, you saw that person being wheeled out just now. There was some sort of device to help with breathing. That was a pump. And that's pretty precarious.
It is, and here's what, you know, hats off to these paramedics, the nurses. Every time we've seen a patient come out, there have been at least 3 paramedics, maybe 1 to 2 nurses getting in these ambulances with these folks. You know, this is where they pour their heart. This is their life. This is their profession. They care about these folks. We're also, one other note, we've seen groups of family members, as you can imagine, rush down, come here into the lobby and go in there trying to get information. When the patients are coming out, several times I've seen the family member get in the back of the ambulance with the loved one, and then another one maybe sit in the passenger seat of the ambulance. So they are surrounded by, if not the professionals, then definitely by both professionals and their loved ones.
Kimberly, you were down by South Street, Seaport. You were in that dangerous situation where power lines were going, transmission issues, your truck was in water, the water was flowing in, your life was in danger, and here you are witnessing these patients. Which is the most sort of startling experience in your mind?
The startling experience, look, we warn people about it, officials warn us. when we were down at the South Street Seaport and we were in a safe position all day. We kept watching the East River, kept watching that seawall. Within 20 minutes, it went from fine to bad, and then it went from bad to worse.
Right.
We backed up, took the live truck, took our vehicles, went to one street over, one street away from the river, thought we were okay there. And that's when we started seeing the river and the East River coming up through the storm drains, and then when we saw folks from the fire company there, the ladder company, bring their ladder truck out and they start to leave, you know you've got to continue to move. We moved again. We moved again another street up. That's when we heard it sounded like firecrackers and fireworks going off. And those canyons with those small, narrow streets, those were the transformers exploding.
And you were right nearby, yeah.
Oh, we were there.
Yeah.
There was in front of us. There was smoke coming up. We moved again. And then that's when most of that area, that was over near, I'm sorry, I'm drawing a blank, Pine Street, John Street. That's when that's when the lights all went out.
Right.
That was the Con Ed boat. They turned off and people lost power. So it's been, and then we took a drive, coming here. We came up Church Street and 6th Avenue, all through the 20s, all through the teens. No power. All of those high rises
to see that
are dark.
Kimberly, certainly you have everything that Lee Goldberg, Amy Freeze, Jeff Smith, Bill Evans said. A lot of it has certainly come to pass, and you've seen a great deal of it. This is a story that we obviously will continue to follow as the hours progress. Thank you so much. Kimberly Richardson at New York University Hospital in Kips Bay.
So the idea that the water just came in so quickly and ended up closing tunnels, not just main roads. Let's check in with John Del Giorno about the current situation. John, can anybody get on or off the island of Manhattan right now?
I am not sure if you can get across the Harlem River Drive crossings, the First Avenue Bridge up there, McCombs Dam Bridge. I think those are still open. The only major crossing that's open, Lauren, is the Lincoln Tunnel. All of the major East River crossings are shut down right now, and that's really unprecedented. And all the snowstorms I've done, everything I've done, I can never remember all of the East River crossings being closed and 2 out of the 3 Hudson River crossings being closed. We're looking at a live picture here. This is West Street at 34th Street. That's live video, and you can still see water up on the West Side Highway. That's the West Street 12th Avenue combination, closed because of sporadic flooding from 57th Street all the way down to the Battery Underpass. Let's go to the maps. We'll kind of take down a tour of the tri-state area. We're going to hit the major points here, and we will start in Manhattan, as we said, over on the east side. The FDR Harlem River Drive combination is closed from the Battery all the way up to the George Washington Bridge. That's the entire east side drive. The Battery Underpass is closed as well. And again, remember, that went underwater earlier today. A lot of the water is off the east side now, but there's still going to be water down in the underpass, so that remains shut down. We just talked about the west side there, 12th Avenue and West Street. That is shut down. Now, we'll go to the bridge and tunnel crossings. George Washington Bridge, Holland Tunnel, all of your lower East River crossings, all of your upper East River crossings, they are all closed. The only major crossing into and out of Manhattan right now is the Lincoln Tunnel. We go to Staten Island, which is truly an island tonight. The Verrazano Bridge, the Goethals, the Outer Bridge, and the Bayonne Bridge, all closed right now. All of the bridge and tunnel crossings in Staten Island are closed. Let's talk about some highways now. In New Jersey, the Garden State Parkway, this one's been closed for a while. We heard Governor Christie talk about it earlier. Garden State Parkway shut down both directions from exit 129 all the way to the bottom. That's 129 miles of closed highway. We go to the New Jersey Turnpike. This is shut down both ways between interchange 7 and 8. And there's also another closure on the Turnpike on the Newark Bay extension. That's between Newark Airport all the way over to the Holland Tunnel. Let's go to Westchester. Bronx River Parkway shut down both ways at the Sprainbrook. The Hutchinson River Parkway is underwater in several spots, both ways between the Cross County Parkway and the Cross Bronx Expressway. So that is closed as well. And of course, the Tappan Zee Bridge, that is shut down in both directions. No word on when we'll get that reopened. We talk about Nassau County. The county executive said that all of the roadways are technically shut right now in Nassau County. Specifically, if we're talking about the Meadowbrook, the Wantagh, the Seaford Oyster Bay, and all of your local roads, south of Sunrise Highway. That was the trouble zone. That's where the Meadowbrook is closed, and the Wantagh, and the Seaford Oyster Bay, and of course the Loop Parkway down there. We are going to see a lot of damage in Nassau County, south of Sunrise Highway. As far as mass transit goes, we can come back to the live studio picture. Mass transit canceled tomorrow. Your trains, New Jersey Transit, city subways, Metro North, all of that is canceled basically until further notice. It's going to be one of these situations where we have to wait until daylight to see what kind of damage there is and really how much water is still down in the subway systems and the train tunnels under the rivers before we can get things up and running again.
Yeah,
for Eyewitness News, I'm John Del Giorno.
We saw video, John, of water in the tunnels, water pouring into like the vent building at the Holland Tunnel. And I guess that's a question that Amy Freeze might be able to answer for us, is when we might see some of that water in the tunnels on some of these roads start to recede so that people can assess the damage and even the utility crews can get out there and start doing some of the cleanup.
Right. Well, I think we've got some good evidence pointing in the right direction as far as the gauges go. That's where we can check the water levels. Not always possible to completely, show you exactly what's happening with water levels everywhere. So telling you that there's no more water in the tunnel, I can't do that. But I can tell you this good news is that at the Battery Park gauge, we're able to look at that, and the water has already receded back below the splash level of 9. So the water is completely lowered in lower Manhattan there. And tomorrow, again at 9 a.m., that high tide, I think, will be in a situation where we only see a minor to moderate possibility of flooding. So maybe splashing over the wall once again, like we saw last night. Again, that's high tide in lower Manhattan at the Battery at 9 a.m. All right, let's get you up to speed on what's happening. We'll check right now first the temperatures across the area. Let's go to the weather producer. We've got low to mid 50s out there. It's sort of a cool feel to the atmosphere. Still very wet and damp in a lot of cases as well. All right, the temperatures at 62 for Bridgeport, 59 for Islip. Winds are coming out of the southeast right now. We still do have some winds that are gusting up to 50, 55 miles an hour. We're not completely out of the woods with the winds. We'll still have winds gusting right through tomorrow morning. We'll have lulls at times, and then these isolated pockets of gusty winds will be coming in. LaGuardia, 52-mile-an-hour wind within the last hour. Out on Long Island, 44 mile an hour for Islip. Here's the latest with the wind forecast. Oranges and reds indicating winds up above 45 miles an hour. Watch how the colors change back into the yellows and greens and blues right up at the shoreline. We start to get a southerly wind by early tomorrow morning. That's really going to taper the effect for the Jersey Shore. But then the winds are going to be driving into the south-facing shores of Long Island. When that starts to happen, we could see some higher water levels there. The coastal flood warning does continue out on Long Island and parts of coastal Connecticut all the way through tomorrow afternoon. That's because we still have about maybe a 10-hour leadway here before all the high tides are completely finished, as we still see winds directed upon those shorelines. So sensitive. Not as intense of a storm, but still sensitive areas, especially when we have had such high water levels already to deal with. By 1 o'clock tomorrow afternoon, still a chance for those gusts up to 40 miles an hour right at the shoreline coming just inland, and then the storm center is completely pulling into the upper Midwest, likely causing some major problems for Lake Michigan. We'll be following that as well. Eaton's Neck had the top wind gust 94 miles an hour. Islip had a 90-mile-an-hour wind. East Mauritius had 81-mile-an-hour plumb at 80. Atlantic City, where the storm made landfall right about 8 o'clock, we had an 80-mile-an-hour wind. Bridgeport had a 76-mile-an-hour wind. So it's been pretty intense. Want to check the rainfall totals for you. Of course, the heaviest rain was down in D.C., just off the Delmarva into Maryland and Delaware. But we also have had some rain here within the last hour. We do have flood warning posted up here for Kingston, parts of Ulster County. That goes until 9:30 on Tuesday. Look at the storm real quick before we get back to Sandra and Lauren. We want to show you the storm still maintaining its strength. It's moving eastward. It is lowering in intensity, but the storm is still out there, and it's going to be affecting a lot of people, producing more than a foot of snow in the Virginia mountains. Incredible surges on Lake Michigan when the winds come down Lake Michigan right into the Chicago lakefront. So this storm, Sandy, will continue to be in the headlines, not just for the cleanup and the impact that it's had in the tri-state, but likely 50 to 60 million Americans affected by this storm system. So we aren't alone, that's for sure. Back to you guys. As we go throughout the morning, I'll have the forecast, but if you're planning for your morning, waking up around 6 or so, still some showers in the area, still some wind to contend with in places, but we will see improvements as we go throughout the day, and we won't have a day like we had today. We'll see a lot of improvement in the forecast. It won't be as bad. I guess that's
we
the
like
best way to
improvement,
say it.
Amy. We like
Yes,
improvement.
I'm trying to think of all the positive words that I can come up with after such a long stretch of talking about things people didn't want to hear.
Yeah, we're going to need a positive stretch because it's going to be a long stretch of cleanup here.
Absolutely.
Thanks,
Thank you, Amy. The morning after Sandy, the deadly superstorm slammed into the tri-state area, sparking a massive fire in Queens. The powerful winds quickly spread the flames through several buildings in Rockaway Park. And the record surge, the storm surge, sent floodwaters pouring into low-lying neighborhoods in New York, New Jersey, and Connecticut. Devastating winds pummeled homes and buildings.
And the scale of the damage from this unprecedented storm is incredible. Insurmountable, probably. Millions of people without power, including residents right here in Manhattan. And rescue efforts now intensifying, with emergency responders scrambling to reach everyone in need. And throughout it all, Eyewitness News is here covering the very latest developments. And of course, the rescue efforts will continue when the daylight comes out and they find people stranded in various areas. Lucy Yang, you are in Hoboken. Any sense that people are stranded in the buildings near you?
Well, we have seen some very dramatic rescues tonight, Lauren and Sandra. You know, for days now, officials have been imploring, begging people who live in low-lying, flood-prone areas to evacuate, to go to higher ground, relatives or friends, or to go to shelters that have been set up for them. They even ordered, in many communities, mandatory evacuations. But of course, mandatory is not exactly mandatory. Officials cannot force folks to leave their homes. So many decided to tough it out at home, hoping for the best, except we got the very worst. And I'm going to show you some video now from Weehawken, from a very dramatic rescue scene on Chestnut Street, showing you exactly why authorities did not want people staying at home, because they did not want to put rescue workers at risk having to get these folks out of their flooded homes. And that's exactly what happened in Weehawken tonight as rescue crews went in and took out homeowners and tenants and residents one by one through very icy, cold, and pretty nasty floodwaters. If you look very carefully on the video, one woman was actually brought out in a Halloween coffin decoration. And we spoke to some of the residents just as they were pulled out of the floodwaters.
I was scared that I was gonna drown. It was just crazy. Had a hard time getting to my out of my house.
Water went up to your neck.
Yeah, the water went up to my neck. Sometimes it went over my head.
We had to go out the second-story window. These guys helped us down from the second part of the roof.
Okay, that's exactly what they didn't want people to have to do, jump out of second-floor windows into floodwaters. But all those people who were rescued were taken either to shelters or to other meeting points where they could meet up with other relatives and friends who could take them to higher, drier ground. That's the very latest from Hoboken tonight. I'm Lucy Yang for Channel 7 Eyewitness News.
So, Lucy, did you have a chance to ask any of those people why they decided to stay? Had they not had flooding before? Was it that the water rose so quickly?
Do you know, Sandra, we talked to a lot of people in Keansburg yesterday. Keansburg is right on the coast of New Jersey. Right, it overlooks the Raritan Bay. They have a lot of floods in that community, but those people feel they're tough. They can weather that storm. A lot of them cited Irene. They survived Irene. Irene was supposed to be so horrible, so they just felt they didn't want to leave their homes. They wanted to stay where they felt they belonged, except I'm told in Keansburg tonight, the mayor called me earlier this evening, they had to rescue a family trapped in their attic. That's how high the water level got. And that is exactly what they didn't want to have to do. They wanted these people to evacuate on their own during daylight hours, when it was safe, when the roads were dry, and not under these dire circumstances. And Keansburg also had mandatory evacuation, but folks there also didn't want to leave. And a part of me understands that, but also another side realizes that these folks are being asked to leave for really their own good.
Well, this is the sort of storm that might have people thinking twice. You know, Irene had them thinking, oh, I'm okay, I can stay. And this one might have them thinking twice. And it might also have the authorities thinking twice about not imposing martial law. You know, they might decide in the future if the storm is going to be this bad. I mean, obviously, this was a crazy storm, unprecedented, but they might say, this time around, when it's mandatory, it's really mandatory.
Yes, and in mandatory, they had so many rescue crews go door to door with these mandatory evacuations, with notices, with, you know, with just every argument under the sun why they should leave, why they should go to higher ground and come back after the flood.
Well, Lucy, I grew up on the Gulf Coast of Texas, which I like to refer to as hurricane country. So I do understand
the attachment.
That attachment. People believe they've ridden out storms before. My house can stand it. The water never gets this high. But what you do learn is that when people are telling you, forecasters, you have to sort of start gauging the level of hysteria, I guess, to put it lightly. And this storm, Lee Goldberg, Amy Freeze, Jeff Smith, Bill Evans, I said it over and over. It was historic proportions. Lucy, I have to ask you something. There is a car behind you in the water and the lights are on. Is that car, I'm assuming it's just stalled out there. I also saw a gentleman behind you a few minutes ago. I guess he was just taking a look at at the high water.
Okay, Sandra, I think that is the reflection from our light onto the headlights of that white car.
Okay.
It was flood. The water levels were higher when we first parked our van here. They have receded. Tide is going out. I have no idea if that car will start in the morning for the car owner. Certainly, other cars we saw, they were definite goners. Those cars will not run again. This one, I'm not sure how high the water got up on this road here. On this
let alone that car. What about all those buses and taxis that we saw, you know, several minutes ago from you? Inundated, just flooded. They look brand new.
Yeah. And my assumption is the area where those buses were parked for safety had been higher ground in other storms.
Yeah, that, you know what, that was just horrible to see. All those vehicles completely destroyed. You just cannot have the water go up to the ceiling level, and you know, for us to barely see the roofs of those cars. But you know, Sandra, what you were mentioning about from folks who live in flood zones or hurricane alleys, that, you know, I've survived the past. We know future storms are not predicted by previous storms. Each one is so different. The weather conditions are so different. You can't predict tomorrow from yesterday, right?
But you got to listen and heed the warning sometimes. Lucy Yang, thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks for all your hard work.
Live tonight in Hoboken.
From Hoboken,
this morning?
Yeah, we head over to Hackensack, where Jen Maxfield is. And good morning to you, Jen.
Good morning to you, Lauren, and good morning to you, Sandra. We're here on Vreeland Avenue at the corner of Jackson Avenue in a very wet Hackensack, New Jersey. Just about an hour ago, we were over on Hudson Street where they were doing some water rescues. There were water rescues happening here at Vreeland Avenue as well. You can see if you look all the way down the street, down towards South River Street, you can see that there is just water covering Vreeland Avenue here, and as a result of the water from the Hackensack River coming up so quickly, firefighters from the Hackensack Fire Department actually had to rescue residents from their homes using boats, and that was happening for hours earlier this evening. Though I will point out one positive development here in Hackensack. We can see that the water level is receding. Take a look at the ground here. You can just see all of the debris, the fallen leaves, the mulch, all kinds of things that have just washed up as a result of all the floodwaters. Well, it's here now on dryish ground, so you can tell that the water level has actually receded. So that is a step in the right direction. One not though is that the power's out here. So if you look all the way down toward the intersection down there, there is actually a street light down there, but it's hard to tell because it's out right now due to the power outage. But we're going to be showing you some video of some rescues, some water rescues that were happening earlier, courtesy of the Hackensack Fire Department and some neighboring towns who came in for mutual aid, including Carlstadt. And we're going to have a listen here, first from one of the fire captains and then from a man who was evacuated from his home by boat.
The whole area is underwater. Tide came up pretty fast, actually came up in a matter of minutes, and trapped a lot of occupants and residents in their houses. And we've just been pulling out the people that have called to ask to be evacuated, and then we're transporting them to our civic center over by City Hall.
The whole first floor is gone, so we just had to leave. There was no way to stay there.
It's very upsetting to see your house like that?
Of course, we lost everything right now. So, never thought it would happen like this, so.
He never thought it would happen like this. Just so devastating for this man to leave his house so quickly. They were not under a mandatory evacuation. But again, the water from the Hackensack River just came up so quickly. And by the time it was time to go and the boat showed up at his door, he had water in the first floor of his house. He just grabbed the essentials and came out. And again, we understand from officials from the Hackensack Fire Department that they evacuated more than 50 people tonight at 3 separate locations on Court Street, on Hudson Street, and here on Vreeland Avenue. Those people taken to the Civic Shelter, and who knows when they're going to get back into these houses, and when they do, who knows what they'll find there. Unfortunately, most likely, there will be a lot of devastation. Lauren, Sandra, back to you in the studio.
Yeah, it's
50 rescues.
I know. 50 rescues, but it sounds like, Jen, you're saying what we've heard from other reporters that have been around the area tonight, that the water rose quickly.
It was dramatic. In fact, it was so dramatic that firefighters felt that they really had to go door to door on these affected streets and check every home to make sure that people were safe. They couldn't even just rely on people to make the call to be rescued themselves, because they were concerned that because the water did come up so quickly, some people may not have even noticed just how dramatic the situation outside their front door had become.
Right. Wow. Jen, thank you so much, live from Hackensack this morning.
Joining us on the phone right now is certainly a man we all want to hear from. It's Kevin Ortiz, who's a spokesperson with the MTA.
Whoa, Kevin, you have a lot of work ahead of you. Tell us, what's the situation? What's the thought about starting up subways? When? How? Give us the lowdown.
Good morning, ladies.
Good morning.
Yeah, Hurricane Sandy really has wreaked havoc on our entire transportation system. We've seen, damage in every borough, every county in the region, down trees, ripped out power, and as you know, severe flooding in tunnels, rail yards, and bus depots. So as of last night, we had 7 subway tunnels under the East River that are flooded. Metro North, we've lost power from 59th Street to Croton Harmon on the Hudson line, and to New Haven on the New Haven line. And we've also seen some flooding in one of the East River tunnels where we run Long Island Railroad trains. And then on the tunnel side, in terms of bridges and tunnels, we've seen flooding at the UL Carry, formerly known as the Brooklyn Battery Tunnel, as well as the Queens Midtown Tunnel.
How does this compare to Irene? Did we have such significant flooding in any of those areas?
Well, we're still assessing the extent of the damage, but it's fairly safe to say at this point that what we're seeing here today, the damage done is at a far larger level than what we saw during Hurricane Irene, for sure.
Now, we just saw some video a few minutes ago from our reporter Lucy Yang, who's in Hoboken. It was video of these buses, I assume, that had been parked. The belief was that it was high ground. Are you able to tell us tonight about how you stored your equipment, and have you gotten a look yet at whether or not the trains were high and dry as well as the buses?
Well, that's definitely one thing we were able to do, is that, we always know which areas are certainly prone to flood. So equipment, whether it be rolling stock or trains and or buses from depots that generally tend to flood, we moved all our equipment to higher ground. So most of our equipment is safe, thankfully.
What's involved with getting rid of the water in some of these tunnels that you're talking about? The East River Tunnel crossing for the LIRR, for example, 7 subway tunnels. What's involved? Is it the same as using a sump pump in a basement, or is it just, it's got to be a larger area we're talking about?
Or do you have to wait until it recedes?
Yeah. Right. Well, just in terms of subways, the subway system has over 300 pump rooms that, just to put this in perspective, on a normal dry day, pumps out over 13 million gallons of water from the system every day. So we have pump rooms, and then we also have portable pumps and pump trains that are all, all being brought out in order to, get the water out of these tunnels. And again, in terms of time, it's really difficult to predict the amount of time that this is all going to take. We need to go in there, assess what we're looking at, and, it can take anywhere from 14 hours to 4 days just to get the water out of the system. And then after that, we'll have to go in, inspect the system, make any necessary repairs, and then come up with a timetable in terms of when we can restore service. But at that point, at this point, it's really hard to tell when we can restore service.
As long as 4 days, potentially, to pump out the water. Am I hearing that right?
Certainly possible, depending on what we see down there. Absolutely.
Oh, wow. Have you started the assessing at this point, or do you have to wait for daylight, or what?
We're going to try and get personnel there as quickly as possible, but, we just need to make sure we can do so in a safe manner.
Yeah, obviously you shut down during Irene. And I think we were all amazed at how quickly the system was able to get started again. I think buses started running fairly quickly, and the trains not soon after. It sounds, though, like that is not necessarily going to be the case in this instance.
Well, right now, yeah, just like I said before, I mean, we've seen some serious devastation across parts of our system. The flooding, we're just talking Lower Manhattan, but we've seen flooding, some stations in the Rockaways and other parts. This is all stuff that we really need to get on as quickly as possible. But, again, this is going to be a lengthy process.
Yeah, and then don't you have to walk every mile of track to make sure there's no debris on top of it all?
We certainly need to inspect every inch of rail, and again, that's all part of the process. That's exactly right.
And I guess salt water is more corrosive than, is my understanding, than fresh water, and I guess a lot of what was flooded into these tunnels is salt water.
Yeah, actually, you bring up a very valid point. When salt water is removed from the system, you get salt deposits that remain on contact surfaces that, you're exactly right, accelerate corrosion, causing potential failures. So everything needs to be thoroughly cleaned, and it's, another part of the process that's going to take some time.
Kevin, have you been out at all, by the way, to see the sites?
Actually, I've just been watching video. We were here in the office fielding calls, but I've seen video, and it's pretty amazing stuff. Absolutely.
Kevin Ortiz, obviously we are going to be talking to you or someone else with you, with the MTA over the next couple of days, hoping that the situation is better than we all seem to think it likely is.
We're hoping that water drains quickly.
Thanks for staying up with us tonight.
Thanks, Kevin. Let's turn it over to Amy Freeze. Kevin Ortiz, Amy, I don't know how much you heard of that from the MTA, talking about the pooling of water in the subway tunnels, tracks having problems on the LIRR and Metro North, even a huge stretch of lines closed, and that's probably from down power lines, I would imagine, and
really
trees down, and the city water on the tracks, and citywide as well.
And I think there's probably been some surprises when they get in there to look at the impacts, because even seeing the PATH trains from Hoboken to Jersey and seeing that the turnstiles flooded and water coming through doorways. I mean, just an incredible impact from all the water, and I think there'll be some surprises, even maybe things they didn't even think could happen when they get down there. So it'll be interesting to see how it all pans out. But maybe you can look at it this way. The worst fears have been realized in a lot of cases, because there have been a lot of measures taken to prepare for this type of an event, and they set up these worst case scenarios, and what they do is they use thresholds of what is possible, what kind of storms have we seen in the past. Well, not only did we meet all those threshold marks, in a lot of cases we superseded them, so difficult to project or look into the future on something that you've never seen happen before in our lifetime. Wind gusts are still in Teterboro at 41 miles an hour, Newark at 52, LaGuardia at 52. We could still see wind gusts through tomorrow up to 50 miles an hour. So not completely done with the winds, but certainly seeing a lot of improvement, and the storm is losing its intensity for us. It is moving eastward and still is a very powerful storm system that will continue to affect people beyond us. It is still a very strong storm moving into parts of the Virginias, bringing huge amounts of snow, over a foot of snow already reported there, and then moving into the Great Lakes and potentially potentially having these lake surges at the lakefront in Chicago that could potentially create some flooding there. So peak wind gust at Eaton's Neck, 94-mile-an-hour wind. Islip had a 90-mile-an-hour wind. East Mauritius had 81-mile-an-hour. Plum at 80. Atlantic City is where the storm made landfall. 80-mile-an-hour wind there and 76 for Bridgeport. I want to give you the latest on the wind models. The winds are going to start to, they're still out of the southeast. We're still seeing some wind pushing into New York Harbor, up against the south-facing shores of Long Island, up against the Jersey Shore. As we approach high tide early tomorrow morning, which will be occurring between about 7 a.m. and 9:30, 10 a.m., when we hit those high tide marks, they're on the backside of the astronomical tide. They still will be unusually high, but I think that we're going to only meet the minor to moderate flood stages in those places. For example, in Battery Park, the tide gauges right now have taken the water back below the 9-foot splash mark. By tomorrow morning, when we hit that high tide again about 9 o'clock in the morning, what could happen is that we come back up to that splash mark, but we don't supersede it and we don't go back into major flooding. By Tuesday morning at 6 a.m. daybreak, this is what we're looking. The wind's finally turning out of the south. And when we start to see this south wind, it will provide relief for the Jersey Shore. However, south-facing shore of Long Island, right into New York Harbor, still some tricky wind to get through right through the mid-morning hours tomorrow. We could see gusts up to 45, even 55 miles an hour, not out of the question. By tomorrow, around 3, 4 o'clock in the afternoon, wind starts to subside and we see improvements. We've tracked Sandy from a tropical development down in the Caribbean for more than a week watching this storm, and that's just really the incredible part of a hurricane is it's the largest storm on earth. We can see it for a long period of time, and we can get the information from the storm and we can create that track. There's always uncertainty the further away you are from the event, but this one turned out pretty good. That cone of uncertainty continued to tighten right into the last 48 hours of the storm track. So it makes landfall just to the south of Atlantic City with a record low pressure intensity, one that's never been recorded at this far north latitude ever before. An 80-mile-an-hour hurricane force wind right at Atlantic City when it makes landfall. The storm will continue to sort of fall apart, and the outlying winds will affect the upper Great Lakes. That's just how powerful the storm will continue to be even as it moves away from us. So we look at radar and satellite, and a pretty quick wrap here as we pull out. You can see that the size of the storm continues to be just incredible, and we have cold air pushing in a backside in this back quadrant here. These are the Virginias, the higher mountain elevation, so as the cold air is wrapped into the storm, which has helped keep it very intense as it's come inland, is also the same place that we've seen more than a foot of snow develop in the Virginias. Haven't seen the latest snow reports out there yet, but more than a foot already. 14 inches was the high end amount from the last report that I saw. Now, still the circulation within the storm, so as this happens, you will have bands of rain that'll develop even through tomorrow morning as the storm continues to push eastward. So we're not completely done with rain, but we're also not going to be seeing the intense rainfall that we saw earlier. Look at the spinning and churning still over Cambridge and Chester. Just incredible over Delaware, Georgetown, and Dover. Going to continue to see some rain showers moving in there. They've had upwards of 6, even 8 inches of rainfall from Sandy. Here's the futurecast taking us into tomorrow morning. Showers are likely during the day, off and on. They won't be the intense sideways rain that you saw today, but still, rain is possible. We'll see the showers off and on. It looks like parts of eastern Long Island could see a quick downpour or two. Coastal Connecticut could get some heavier rain coming in as well, especially for the early part of the morning. Then once we move into the afternoon, we'll have widely scattered showers possible. And then the rain doesn't even completely leave us. We still have a risk of rain, it looks like, late into Tuesday and even parts of early Wednesday. We could see a lingering shower. Here's the planning forecast for you. Waking up this morning, temperatures in the mid-50s. Southeast winds will be turning out of the south by about mid-morning, midday. Temperatures will top off in the low 60s. It'll feel cold and rainy and raw, and it won't be a beautiful looking day, but better than yesterday, better than Sandy making landfall. Temperatures in the mid-60s by 6 o'clock. Coming up, I'll have a look at the AccuWeather 7-day forecast for you, and it looks like the showers are going to linger for a couple of days around here. The one thing that's going to be interesting tomorrow to look at is how the computer models, these river gauges, handle the runoff combined with the surges, because a lot of our rivers interact with the ocean. And so this is going to be an interesting thing to figure out as we wake up in the morning. So that's what I've got for you guys right now. Any questions or anything I can add to the forecast for you?
I think you've got us covered, but we are enjoying the fact that things are improving, and at least the rain is dying down. The winds, while still brisk and gusty, are improving, and that will actually contribute to the bridges reopening once the winds go down.
That's one of the questions that we're getting on Facebook and Twitter here at this hour. People are wondering, can we get back to normal? Can we get back to normal? We still have a possibility of a wind gust through early midday tomorrow of a 45 to 50 mile an hour wind, depending on what the parameters are for the different bridges and how they feel about what's happened during the storm, making sure all the structural things are in place. I'm sure there are some check marks and checklists that they have to go through.
There are. Thank you, Amy.
You got it.
And we want to run through some of the latest developments with you this morning. Officials say flood issues are improving, and Amy just spoke to that. The surge peaked at 13.88 feet. It is now down to 9.81. That is an improvement. Power issues, though, remain across the tri-state area. Dozens of ambulances are waiting in line outside NYU Medical Center, where about 200 patients have been moved. We'll have a live report on that shortly. And officials are now monitoring Bellevue Medical Center, which is also in the blackout zone in Lower Manhattan. And in Queens, at least 3 sets of fires were burning in the Rockaways. Fire trucks cannot access those fires and hydrants in that area due to all the flooding there.
I want to give you some more specifics on the power situation right now. It is grim. In New Jersey, we've got more than 1.9 million homes and businesses without electricity. On Long Island, Sandy proved to be a record breaker. 75% of LIPA customers have no power. That's more than 861,000 customers. Here in New York, we have blackouts in large parts of Brooklyn, Staten Island, and Lower Manhattan. About 476,000 customers without power. And in Connecticut, the number is about 144,000 homes in the dark. Now, Con Ed says 159,000 of its customers in Westchester are also blacked out.
And the storm is blamed for at least 10 deaths so far. 5 people died in New York State. At least 3 involve a tree falling on them. And in New Jersey, 3 people were killed. In Connecticut, 2 people died.
Now we want to go back to Kimberly Richardson. She is live at New York University Hospital in Kips Bay with more on the evacuation of about 200 patients there. Kimberly?
Alessandra, we have some new information to give to you, but this is still a massive undertaking, and it's still very much an active scene. We're now into roughly the 3rd hour of this complete evacuation of NYU Medical Center. Let me step away and show you. More patients are coming out. A source here on the scene tells me that essentially floors 16 to ground, from the 16th floor down, those floors were evacuated, all the patients, everything from pediatrics to emergency to critical. We have some video that we took earlier of some of those patients coming out. I'm told that inside the hallways of this hospital right now, they are operating with flashlights, but don't let that worry you. The source also tells me that everything is working extremely well, extremely orderly. They say there is some sort of smoky smell, smoky conditions on the floors in the hospital. I'm told the backup generators here essentially failed. They went down. The few lights you are seeing inside the hospital, I'm told those are battery-powered lights. Back here live, here on First Avenue, we've been seeing it all night. Up here on First Avenue, there have been roughly 3 dozen ambulances. Those are all standing by. What they're doing is coming down here on First Avenue. They come in the semicircular driveway here in front of the hospital. The NYPD has set up these bright searchlights so that they can literally just shuttle the patients outside of the doors here and into the waiting ambulances. Inside those ambulances, we've seen at least 2 nurses for each patient, at least 3 paramedics. I've seen loved ones actually getting in those ambulances and going with the patient. They're being brought to other hospitals here in the city. Mount Sinai is one of them. Hospital officials, as you can imagine, they're very busy, extremely busy right now. So not yet heard from an official spokesperson from the hospital, but we've been out here and we've seen everything from infants to the elderly coming out. And it is still going on. There are roughly 200 patients, so you can imagine this is going to take some time.
Me, as we've watched you over the last few hours, is that even though this is sort of a dire emergency situation, having to move all of these patients in this kind of weather, this operation seems to be unfolding in a very sort of orderly, methodical, business-like, efficient manner.
And that's exactly it, Sandra, and that's what my source tells me, who's been inside the hospital. He tells me that this is all the parts to this machine are working right, working together. Again, you have NYPD out here. You have many, many ambulances here. Here's one, American Medical Response. I've seen them from all over, all volunteers too, volunteering from different operations, coming here and picking up these folks. We have lots of, and in the lobby there, you can see inside the hospital, there's NYPD in there. We've seen fire out here, OEM. It's just all the parts working together. I'm sure they've tried and done drills to do this, and they're doing it right.
And we know not far from you, Bellevue Medical Center, which is also in that blackout zone. Officials are monitoring that as well. You know, it's very, very rare for a backup generator to go, and these major hospitals check them. They make sure that they're functioning for an issue just like this. So for this to go, it's really extraordinary circumstances.
It is. It's a worst case scenario, you know, but as we're seeing, there's a reason that this is all working so well. Like I said, I'm sure they've trained for this and had plan B and C in place, and it's working. We did hear about up the street, Bellevue, and hearing that there may have been monitoring their system there. Some of the media here dared go there and came back here and said all was quiet. That was about an hour ago. So it seems like the main operation with these backup generators going down and backup systems is here at New York University Hospital.
All right, Kimberly Richardson live outside New York University Hospital. Great job today, Kimberly. You've certainly been in the thick of things.
Lucy Yang also in the thick of things in Hoboken, New Jersey. Lucy, you've been watching the waters recede. You've been watching things hopefully getting back to. This was a fire where?
Yeah,
Where's this video
This fire was in Rockaway. Yes, Jeff McGay's was in Rockaway. That was a fire. There were some rescues there.
I don't know that Lucy saw any fires, but she certainly saw some rescues. You've seen quite a bit tonight, Lucy.
Well, that's right. Lauren and Sandra, we talked so much this evening about all the damage, all the loss caused by Sandy. I want to take it now to a very personal level because joining me is Brian Battaglia. He is a homeowner and a businessman here in Hoboken, and he just could not sleep tonight because he was so worried about his store, which is right behind us, Battaglia Home, 2 floors of beautiful contemporary furniture. You were worried about your building and your inventory.
Yeah, I'm worried about my business, sure. I came to check it out. I came before when it was all flooded up high. I couldn't get close. I knew it would recede some, so I came back now.
Okay, right before a live shot, I saw you go over and take a peek inside the windows. What did you see, sir?
Yeah, it's pretty much destroyed on the ground floor. It probably came up 4 or 5 feet. All the furniture is pushed into one corner. You know, it's pretty much a total loss on the ground floor.
Oh, so sorry to hear that. So you said all the furniture in the back of your store is now up to the front window?
That's right. It probably came in from the back to start, even though it doesn't seem like it from here. That's what it looks like from the furniture, yeah.
So 20 years it took you to build up this business?
That's right.
It took Sandy a couple of hours to destroy your ground level.
It appears so, yeah. Okay. So we'll start working on it tonight or tomorrow morning and keep going.
But you and your family are safe in your houses, dry?
Everybody's safe. Everybody's good. We actually still have power, which is a little crazy in Hoboken. Not many places do. So, yeah.
Okay. You looked at on the home front, not on the business front.
That's right. That's right.
Thank you for joining us. Thank you, Brian. So earlier this evening, we were in Weehawken, where there was some very dramatic rescue. There was a dramatic rescue operation going on Chestnut Street, where folks trapped in their homes had to be taken out through all that deep water to higher ground. I don't know if we're rolling video, if we can roll some video on that scene. If you look carefully, there's one woman who was taken from her home in a Halloween coffin decoration. Yes, we note the irony there, but these are the very people that officials have been asking, imploring, even ordering to evacuate their homes, and they chose not to, hoping they could weather this storm, hoping they could tough it out. But when the waters just got too high, they had to go the hard way.
I was scared that I was gonna drown. It was just crazy. Had a hard time getting to my out of my house.
Water went up to your neck.
Yeah, the water went up to my neck. Sometimes it went over my head.
We had to go out the second-story window. These guys helped us down from the second part of the roof.
Of course, no one wants to jump out of their second floor window into all this water, this flooded water, which came in from the Hudson, which is sewage backwater, which is, you don't know what else is floating in that water. In any case, we have not heard any reports of problems with the rescues. It seems the crews were able to get out families who are trapped, bring them to higher ground, bring them to shelters or to meeting points for other family members or friends to pick them up. Hoboken now reporting this to be the worst flood they have experienced in almost 200 years. We're live in Hoboken tonight. I'm Lucy Yang for Channel 7 Eyewitness News.
So Lucy, the gentleman you were speaking with earlier, I have two questions for you. Had he flooded before? And did he not have an opportunity to try and move some of his inventory up to his second level?
Well, those are great questions. He's still here. Brian, we just grabbed him before we went on here. We saw a gentleman out here at this wee hour of the morning, and we grabbed him. So anyway, Sandra Bookman is inquiring, did you not have any time for any prep for your merchandise here for the storm?
We did prep, but not for 4 to 5 feet. You know, we prepped to have some water run by the store. There's really no way to move furniture. We put some things upstairs, but the amount of stuff and the amount of weight of big furniture, things like that, there's nothing we could do to get them out of a 4 to 5 foot amount of water.
I hear you. Have you ever seen flooding like this before, sir?
I've never seen any flooding here before. I've been here 20 years. The owner of the building, 50 years, never.
So Willow Avenue, this part of Hoboken, does not generally flood?
Well, further back. And there's some runoff problems sometimes, but not standing water like this, no.
So you just never anticipated it would reach this level inside your store?
No, I mean, it's unprecedented, yeah.
Did you try sandbags or things like that?
We have sandbags, yeah, but not sandbags at 5 feet high.
No. Yeah. Sandy kind of made a mockery of sandbags tonight, I think.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you so much,
All right.
Lucy.
We see firefighters going down the street. Can we try to show some of that? What are they bringing a rescue boat down the street? We're trying to make out what's happening down there.
Yes, we do see a boat there, don't we?
Yeah,
it looks like vehicle. What is that? It has wheels.
It looks like a...
It does, and it looks like it's floating.
But the guy next to him is walking.
We're going to keep the camera trained on this site. Of course, you know, every block has some activity right now. And
or maybe it's some way to carry somebody, because it looks like somebody is in it. It's sort of cut off at this point.
Well, you can check that out, Lucy, and we'll get back to you. Give us an update, all right?
Okay, ladies. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Lucy.
So our crews are, of course, sending us video throughout the day. They've been sending us video, live video, and throughout the night. But we want to show you some of our viewer video that has been sent to us. Some of it is really compelling. In Bay Ridge, Brooklyn, watch this. That is a live burning wire. A live wire just burning. And apparently there were firefighters standing right nearby, but there was really nothing you could do at that point. You got to let it burn out. And that happened right after a tree toppled from a house.
Now, this next piece of video is from Rockaway, Queens. We're going to see that in a minute, I suppose.
But, you know, this power line, by the way, that's exactly the sort of thing people are seeing all throughout. They might not have caught it on video,
and they're asking people to stay away from that.
Yeah.
Again, this is Rockaway, Queens, a site you've seen very similar clips from some of our crews. But here's a viewer's video, and in the background, the man shooting it is, where's this guy?
On a balcony.
Crazy. What in the background you can hear him expressing his amazement with words that we cannot share with you, because I think they hadn't seen this water come over the boardwalk.
And you could see somebody with a dog running to avoid it.
One of the reasons people were told to get off those boardwalks today, not to sightsee. This is just crazy.
The power of the water. Okay, now here's one. Wait for it. Wait for it. Watch that tree, and there it goes. The limb down. That's in Carroll Gardens, caught on a cell phone camera. Luckily, the folks shooting that video were just a couple feet away. But, you know, that snapping branch, I mean, it's amazing that they knew to shoot video of that tree because a lot of trees are going to be going down with the weight of the water and the wind.
Perfect timing. We saw quite a few trees around the city today. In fact, a couple of people, one woman in Brooklyn was hurt, one gentleman was killed tonight, a falling tree.
Yeah, I saw people standing on a corner on my way over, and a tree branch of sorts flew right by them, nearly caught them, and it amazed me that they even wanted to be out there. You know, a lot of people just wanted to see, wanted to be part of what was happening around them, but better off being inside, and certainly in New York City, in a high-rise, high above it all.
Exactly. We're going to toss it out to Jen Maxfield. She is in Hackensack, New Jersey. Jen, what do you have for us? We see all the debris behind you, apparently left over by that receding water.
Oh, that's absolutely right. What a mess here on Vreeland Avenue in Hackensack. We think this is the gas tank of a car. How it got separated from that car, I have no idea. But it's washing up here at the corner of Vreeland Avenue and Jackson Avenue. If you look further down toward Hudson Street, you can see some recycling, those blue recycling cans, some other debris in the middle of the roadway there. The water is receding, but it's leaving behind all of this debris, not just household debris like what you're seeing here, but also leaves and mulch and sticks and everything that fell down during those heavy winds earlier today that got caught up in the floodwaters. And then when the floodwaters receded back down toward Hudson Street, you can see all of this just left behind. We're going to show you some video right now, though, of some water rescues that were happening here on Vreeland Avenue and over on Hudson Street and on Court Street in Hackensack here tonight. Officials tell us that 50 people were rescued from their homes after the water from the Hackensack River came up so quickly. Let's hear what officials had to say.
The whole area is underwater. Tide came up pretty fast, actually came up in a matter of minutes, and trapped a lot of occupants and residents in their houses. And we've just been pulling out the people that have called to ask to be evacuated, and then we're transporting them to our civic center over by City Hall.
The whole first floor is gone, so we just had to leave. There was no way to stay there.
Is it very upsetting to see your house like that?
Of course, we lost everything right now. Never thought it would happen like this, so.
Oh, and that man was so devastated. He said he was actually able to get out of his house earlier in the day by driving out, but then felt very worried that he had left his house unlocked, so he wanted to go back in. And when he got there, he just saw the entire first floor just devastated. Again, we're going to take a live look down Vreeland Avenue here. I should point out it does look very dark. That is because there's also a power outage in this section of the city of Hackensack. This area was not under a mandatory evacuation, but the water from the Hackensack River just coming up in such a dramatic fashion that people really were just taken by surprise, and that is why these rescues had to happen on the boats. More than 50 people tonight evacuated from their homes in Hackensack. Tossing it back to you in the studio now.
Devastated that gentleman was because he, you know, the water came up in the first floor of his home. It's completely a loss. Lucy just had the gentleman on earlier. He lost the first floor of his store. I think that's probably one of the hardest things about our jobs, that we're there sort of chronicling what's going on, and we meet all of these people that you just really want to help. And you feel their pain at some point.
Absolutely. And she's seen a lot of devastation today.
Yeah,
so she's talked to quite a few of those people. Well, here is a site that we want to share with you, a rare sight. Flooding on the streets of Manhattan. Water from the Hudson River spilling over several blocks into Chelsea. That's pretty remarkable because we're going to show you 10th Avenue. That's in the 20s. So 10th Avenue is not one block from the water. It's 2 blocks from the water. There we are. That is just outside in the evacuation zone, actually. And as you can see, people are staying put, walking through the water, checking out the neighborhood. The streets inundated there, and police are patrolling the area, urging residents to get back inside.
You have to clear the block. Go back into your apartment.
And they have good reason to warn people to stay indoors. Power is out in Chelsea and most of lower Manhattan. It is dark in that area, and it is absolutely dangerous. So if you can stay home, do so.
This was a historic sight from Fort Lee, New Jersey. The George Washington Bridge completely shut down. I saw Jen Maxfield out here earlier. The Port Authority closed both levels of the GWB by 7 o'clock as wind speeds approached 60 miles per hour in that area. The agency has not yet determined when the bridge will reopen to traffic. We are all hopeful that's when the winds die down enough, maybe perhaps by tomorrow, but we're not sure yet.
You know, I was wanting to comment that in Chelsea, where the water spilled in past 10th Avenue, in Lower Manhattan, where I live, and I'm just on the border of the evacuation zone. When I came to work, there was no water, and then 30 minutes later, I got a call that the water had spilled from the West Side Highway 1 full avenue over to where I live and started flooding my building. And we were just on the border of where the evacuation zone ends, so it could have gone either way on our block, but that water was ferocious.
Yeah, I think there wasn't much expectation that the Hudson would flood. I mean,
or certainly not avenues past where the banks are.
Record flooding. Yeah. Lucy Yang is in Hoboken, where they have seen record flooding there.
Well, ladies, I just wanted to give you an update. At the end of my last live shot, we saw some fire activity behind me. We were trying to figure out exactly what they were dragging in the water. Well, my photographer, Dave Alter, was able to figure all this out with his eagle eyes, and he's still bright-eyed and awake at this hour. He saw that they were firefighters who were putting PSE&G workers in a raft. They are still rowing that raft up Willow Avenue as we speak. I'm told there's a power station several blocks away from here. We can only assume they're on their way there to do what we are so desperate for them to do, which is get some power back in this community. In any case, that was a raft they were bringing out into the street onto Willow Avenue so they could bring PSE&G workers to where they need to go. That's the very latest from Hoboken tonight. I'm Lucy Yang for Channel 7 Eyewitness News.
I'm going to assume, Lucy, they were going to that power station to probably take a look at just how much damage there is, how much water there might be there.
Yes, so you know these rafts have come in very handy tonight, either from bringing residents out of their homes or, as we just saw this moment, bringing workers to where they need to work.
Yeah, they're resourceful right now. They've got to figure out ways to get them there.
Lucy, let me ask you, did you had a chance